1941 году оборонная промышленность СССР составляла 39%. Более трети мощностей страны работала на оборонку. Одно из ведущих мест в промышленных планах принадлежало авиации. Рекордные довоенные перелеты были предметом гордости страны. Немецкий генерал Шваб-Диссен признавал несомненные успехи СССР, хотя утверждал, что более полную информацию на этот счет немцы так и не получили из-за, цитата, «высокоэффективной системы контрразведки, действующей в советской России». Тем не менее, немецкие специалисты, допущенные на советские заводы, докладывали руководству, что советские предприятия, цитата, «практически полностью независимы от внешних поставщиков. Оборудование современное, высокий уровень квалификации». Гитлер среагировал четко. Теперь мы видим, как далеко зашли эти люди. Нужно начинать немедленно.
The war came upon us so suddenly. Though the country had done nothing but prepare for it, we were attacked by the strongest army in Europe, which had overrun Poland in just 1 month, and France, Belgium, and the Netherlands in under 2 months. However, not all branches of the military were hit by catastrophe. For example, the Navy was put on alert before Nazi forces struck, but alas, it was not so everywhere. Massive attacks on Soviet airfields came suddenly. In the USSR's borderlands, we lost 1,200 aircraft, and 800 of them were destroyed at their airfields. Planes could not even manage to take off first. As a result of bombardment, a large number of armories for the Air Force were blown up. Nevertheless, the Luftwaffe did not succeed in completely wiping out the Soviet Air Force. In 1941, Germany lost on the Eastern Front nearly 4,000 planes. On all its other fronts, in Africa, the Mediterranean, and Britain, it lost just 2,300. The Soviet military in the Odessa region did not experience catastrophe. Why was that? On one hand, the Luftwaffe's efforts were not as directed here as at the border regions. On the other hand, commanders and division leaders across the Odessa region's Air Force immediately jumped to take action. Troops' barracks were abandoned, and planes were moved to backup airfields. And no one could have imagined that Soviet planes, at the very start of the war, could strike a daring and desperate blow at the very heart of the enemy. On August 7, 1941, at 9 p.m., a formation led by Major Yevgeny Preobrazhensky took off from Saaremaa. It comprised 15 bombers and set a course for the capital of Nazi Germany, Berlin. As one member of the crew, future Air Force Lieutenant General Alexander Malotchi recalled, "We flew over the sea at night in total silence at an altitude of 7,000 meters. The temperature in the cabin fell to -40 Celsius. The flagship navigator Hochlov's compass froze. He had to warm it with his hands. When dry land appeared below them, spotlights lit up to show the pilots the way to land. The Germans had mistaken our men for their own. Though Berlin was ringed with anti-aircraft guns 100 kilometers out, and hundreds of fighter pilots stood watch at German air bases, our men reached the city without a shot fired in return. Only when the first bombs fell were our planes rocked by fire, though no one was hurt. German air defense was caught completely unprepared. As German radio reported, on the night of August 7th, a large force of British aircraft, amounting to 150 planes, tried to bomb our capital. Thanks to the efforts of our fighter planes and air defense, the bulk of the enemy's forces were repelled. Of the 15 planes that made it through to Berlin, 9 were shot down. In response, British radio broadcast, "The Germans' news of the bombing of Berlin is interesting and puzzling, because no British planes flew over Berlin on the night of August 7th. The Soviet press agency, in turn, released the following. On the night of August 7th, a group of Soviet aircraft conducted a reconnaissance flight over Germany and dropped a number of incendiary and highly explosive bombs on military facilities in the Berlin area. Preobrazhensky, Khokhlov, and 3 other airmen were decorated with the title Hero of the Soviet Union on August 13th. Though their flight to Berlin did not prove a decisive military success, from August 7th to September 4th, 1941, we still managed to bomb Berlin 10 times, dropping 36 tons of bombs. In the very first days of the war, Soviet aces intercepted enemy planes 16 times. Through the lives of several heroic pilots, we can see how the Red Army's Air Force contributed to the overall victory. Let's try to understand how our pilots, after learning some bitter lessons at the start of the war, ultimately beat the Germans' ace pilots who had hitherto seemed invincible. Alexander Grisenko, born 1904. From January to August 1938, he served in China as part of a Soviet delegation. He fought the Japanese under the nom de guerre Wang Si because we were aiding the Chinese secretly. Personally, and in a group, he shot down 4 Japanese warplanes. For the exemplary performance of his mission in China, Captain Grisenko was awarded the Order of the Red Banner on November 14, 1938. He would earn this decoration a total of 3 times during his military career. By 1941, he was already commanding a fighter regiment around Kiev. In early June, Grisenko's unit was subjected to an unannounced inspection. The inspectors found that all of Grisenko's planes, 57 in total, had been fully armed without orders from above. The commander was summoned to a tribunal for bringing his regiment to full combat readiness without authorization. They never had time to punish him because war broke out first. Unlike many other units, Grisenko's pilots not only didn't let themselves be taken by surprise, but they themselves attacked German bombers. On the first day of the war, Grisenko's regiment suffered no casualties whatsoever. During the first year of fighting, Grisenko's pilots downed over 100 enemy planes in aerial combat. Grisenko was shot down for the first time in 1942 at Stalingrad, while he was fighting several German aces at once. He spent over 6 months in the hospital and lost his left leg. He learned to walk with a prosthesis, and in spite of his disability, he managed to return to service. He participated in 27 aerial battles and personally shot down 4 German planes, 2 Junkers and 2 Messers. By the war's end, Alexander Grisenko was commanding a division in Vienna. Future hero of the Soviet Union, Viktor Talalikhin, started learning how to fly in the Moscow Aero Club, where he was nearly declared unfit. He was barely 5 feet tall. He could barely reach the airplane's pedals, and when landing, he could not see the ground. They gave him some pillows so that he could sit more comfortably. Thus, he began flying with such padded seating in spite of his peers' mockery. He learned to fly and became one of the best at it, though he got the nickname Shorty at the flying club, and it stuck with him forever. He began flying during the war with Finland, where he made 47 sorties and was awarded the Order of the Red Star. The 177th Fighter Regiment, where Junior Lieutenant Talalikhin served, defended the skies over Moscow from any southwestern threats. On August 6, 1941, at 10:55 p.m., fighter pilots heard the alarm. The enemy's planes had appeared in Quadrant 82 at an altitude of 4,000 meters. Viktor Talalikhin took off in his plane. During the first Nazi bombing raids over Moscow, Soviet air defense was so erratic that even our own planes often came under anti-aircraft fire. Under these circumstances, even finding the enemy in the air was already a big achievement for a fighter pilot. To find an enemy plane in the dark sky, Soviet pilots had to rely on searchlight beams. On his first sortie, Talalikhin made out an enemy bomber just 20 meters away from its swastika and black crosses. Here's what happened in Talalikhin's own words.
На высоте 4800 метров я настиг противника, подошел к нему в хвост и открыл огонь. Но вскоре мои патроны кончились. Я принимаю решение таранить самолет. Когда подошел на 10 метров от хвоста, по мне была дана очередь из крупнокалиберного пулемета. Обожгло мне руку, я принял второе решение – жертвовать собой, но не упустить гада. Даю полностью газ и своим самолетом врезаюсь в хвост противника.
Talalikhin's plane rolled over from the impact, and the wounded pilot parachuted out from a height of 2,500 meters. As he fell, he was able to see the burning German Henkel explode. Viktor Talalikhin woke up the next day, a famous man. Newspapers and radio had reported his overnight battle. The remains of the German crew were found among their plane's wreckage. One of their pilots turned out to be a lieutenant colonel who had received the Iron Cross. It must be noted that Talalikhin was not the first to shoot down an enemy plane. On the night of July 29, 1941, Lieutenant Pyotr Yeremeyev from the nearby 27th Fighter Regiment, flying a MiG-3, shot down a German junker. Two fighter pilots fighting near Leningrad, Stepan Zdarovtsev and Pyotr Kharitonov, also destroyed enemy planes in the summer of 1941. In both cases, they did not retreat after running out of ammunition. Rather, they continued the battle by colliding with the Nazi planes. Not only did both pilots survive, but they were able to preserve their own planes. But it just happened that Viktor Talalikhin, in August and September 1941, was widely feted in the press. Reporters followed his every move. Talalikhin was asked to speak to many workers and Komsomol members.
Кто не хочет быть рабом, тот идет вместе с нами в бой. Крепче удары по гитлеровской Германии. Я клянусь и всех моих товарищей призываю грудью встать на защиту нашей юности, на защиту чести и свободы Родины.
On October 27, 1941, a squadron with Talalikhin commanding was ordered to fly to the Yukhnov region, find there an airfield used by Nazi bombers, and destroy it. As Alexander Pechenevsky, who knew Viktor Talalikhin then, recalled, "We were flying in different planes. We were in a group providing cover so the Germans could not attack the I-16 fighters. Talalikhin was 1,000 meters below us and leading a group of MiGs. But the Germans came with a sneaky attack, not from above, but from below. He spotted the Germans in time, but a shell from a Messerschmitt's cannon hit his cockpit. Talalikhin's comrades watched his plane land, and they were sure that the pilot had survived. But when they found Viktor's plane and opened the cockpit, they found blood on his temple, and his legs were completely charred. Talalikhin was able to land the plane, even while he was burning alive. Lydia Litviak lived to the age of only 21. During the war, she shot down 3 enemy planes and an aerostat, which was confirmed by German documents. She thus became the greatest female fighter pilot of all time. She graduated from a flight school in Kherson, and then she herself worked as an instructor to other pilots. As soon as the war broke out, she asked to be sent to the front, and she joined the 586th Fighter Regiment. In spring 1943, Litviak was wounded in the skies above Rostov. As her plane was hit by a burst of enemy fire, metal shards from the hull struck her legs. Nevertheless, in spite of bleeding heavily, she managed to get her plane back to base. Even before she had fully recovered from her wounds, she left the hospital to keep on fighting. On August 1st, 1943, Lydia died near Shakhtersk, a town in the Donbass. She was returning with a paired plane from an aerial battle when they were attacked by a German fighter wing. Her body was never found. She was lost somewhere near Shakhtersk.
Achtung, Achtung! Pokryshkin in der Luft! Pokryshkin in der Luft! Achtung, Pokryshkin, Pokryshkin!
Внимание, внимание! В воздухе Покрышкин передавали рации немецких самолетов. На Украине вернулся с боевого задания на своей аэрокобре дважды Герой Советского Союза майор Покрышкин. Он только что сбил 3 самолета противника.
Perhaps the most illustrious career was that of pilot Alexander Pokryshkin. When things were especially tense, Germans would switch from coded communications to plain text. Achtung, Partisanen, a sudden attack by partisans. Achtung, Panzer, Soviet tanks had suddenly broken through. And Achtung, Pokryshkin. There were numerous witnesses to how, after the cry Achtung, Pokryshkin was made, the German aces would turn around and fly away. Whether it was 4 against 50, 3 against 23, or 1 against 8, Pokryshkin would enter the fray regardless, and he was never afraid of losing. Moreover, in every skirmish, he accepted the most dangerous assignment, to attack the German plane's vanguard. Alexander Pokryshkin was born in Siberia on March 6, 1913. After 7 years of schooling, he entered a military flight mechanic school and then pilot school. He displayed a remarkable character from the very start of his service. There is a famous example from the late 1930s when, coming home from the airfield, he noticed the wife of a recently arrested pilot with her 3 children. She was on the street in the rain and completely soaked. People merely walked by and pretended not to see the family of their disgraced colleague. But Pokryshkin, for everyone to see, walked up to her and said, "I'm not afraid of anything. You and the children are not going to stand there in the rain." He let them spend the night at his own home. The war arrived for Pokryshkin on June 22nd. Already on the 23rd, he shot down his first messer and barely escaped with his life. As he recalled, "I was jolted out of my thoughts by a sharp crack, and some force was turning the plane around on its axis so that I hung upside down. I righted my plane and saw that one Messerschmitt was swiftly leaping forward, while another was flying in from behind to attack, and my own plane had been seriously damaged. A big hole was gaping in my right wing. Another enemy shell hit the middle section of his plane, but he managed nevertheless to reach his airfield. 10 days later, Pokryshkin's MiG was hit by fire from anti-aircraft guns. It is impossible to count how many times the pilot cheated death. In the 1,418 days of World War II, he made 650 flights, took part in 156 aerial battles, and shot down 59 enemy planes personally and 6 in a group. These are the general statistics, but let's examine a specific case. In summer 1942, Alexander Pokryshkin was in Stavropol. At an empty airfield, he found a MiG-3 fighter in working order. He thought it was a shame to leave the plane just standing there, and so he decided to take off. While he was setting off from the runway, German soldiers on motorcycles arrived at the airfield. As Pokryshkin recounted, as I flew over the roof of Stavropol's buildings, I saw dozens of tanks in the streets with crosses on their sides. That is when I got really scared about where I would have to land this plane and for taking it for a joyride in the first place. We think that as he flew on, he really thought, "To hell with you all. I will return to Stavropol." But he could not write such a brazen thing in a book. On April 12, 1943, near Krymsk, he shot down 4 German Me-109s, and the following evening, another 3. And this man says he was scared when he took a plane for a joyride. On April 29th of that year, 8 P-39 Era Cobras, guided by Pokryshkin, repelled 27 Junker Ju-87 bombers, which were being covered by 10 Me-109s. One pair of Soviet planes kept the enemy fighters occupied, while the rest dived and shot down 12 Junkers. Pokryshkin was personally responsible for downing 4. As he was returning to base, he took down a 5th German bomber. Now, do you understand why the Germans would cry that Pokryshkin was aloft? As frontline reporters wrote about him then, his friends say that he doesn't seem to be shooting at the enemy as much as unleashing a furnace of flames on them. All of the firing positions on his plane were linked to a single trigger. Pokryshkin had come up with his own formula for success: altitude, speed, maneuvering, fire.
Окончен боевой день. Над кроватью Пokryshkina висят силуэты немецких самолетов. Не забывать о противнике — его любимая поговорка. Каждый день летчик тренируется с прицелом, чтобы в бою не подвели ни глаз, ни рука.
He lived a good long life after the war, and even served as a consultant for the classic film Only Old Men Are Going Into Battle. On December 27, 1973, that film was first screened. When the lights came back on in the hall, everyone could see Pokryshkin wiping his tears away. This was the same man who had dominated over the whole sky.
Когда кончится война, вернемся мы сюда, пройдем по этим местам. Кто остался в живых?
Throughout the war, Pokryshkin kept with him his favorite books: Maxim Gorky's Song of a Falcon and Sergei Yesenin's poems. "The madness of the bold is the wisdom of life," wrote Gorky, while Yesenin is famous for the lines, "I love my motherland, I adore my motherland." Somewhere at the intersection of these things, boldness and love for one's country, lay Pokryshkin's great strength. The great strength of the winners of the war, our great strength. The name Alexander is Greek. It means defender. They defended their homeland, and thereby they achieved this victory, our victory.